Well, this is a Saturday afternoon and the neighborhood's a little bit noisy, so you'll have to put up with it because, you know, I do. Anyway, I wanted to take a quick minute to talk about tiny houses. It's something I actually know something about, not just the construction of them, but the philosophy behind it, and I wanted to share those thoughts with you. This is something I've talked to my nephews about quite a bit, encouraging them to go in that direction because it's a really smart thing to do. It's basically what I did myself. And well, if you spend any time on the internet at all, you see, you know, all this stuff pop up about tiny houses. Oh, look what these two women did, or whatever, you know, that stuff. And I recently read a rant from a guy who said, well, you can't live in that thing. And ultimately he's right. And you're not supposed to live in a tiny house. You're supposed to move into it. The idea is that this is a gateway to ownership, and private property is the cornerstone of liberty. Not that we actually really own anything in the U.S. anymore, though, but that's a subject for a different video. Anyway, the tiny house thing. The idea is that you can own it. You can afford to own it. It's not difficult to purchase a small parcel of land. You can buy a city lot in my neighborhood for $1,000. Probably still can. I mean, it's traditionally that's been the price for, you know, the 20 years that I know of, and I'm sure it could still be done at $1,000, maybe $2,000. I've actually got one that I paid $13 for, you know, but I'm a really good shopper. Ideally, I think, though, that for the tiny house concept, you wouldn't really want to be inside of a municipal city limits. You would want to be in an outlying area, and even at that, 1 acre is not that expensive if you can find someone that will, you know, parcel it at that small. And 1 acre is not really a very small piece of land. One of the problems I've run into talking to people about this is, oh, they want, you know, 250,000 acres or something. They want 250 acres. They want 400 acres, 40 acres, whatever. You don't need all that. You know, you basically, you know, this is an inexpensive and affordable way to go into ownership. Don't set a roadblock for yourself where you feel like you need this huge parcel of land, because really you don't anyway. You're not going to become a cattle baron. You know, this is about taking the low road to the high road. And, well, wherever you live right now as a young person, you know, let's say, you can pick up a trailer frame for $100 on Craigslist, you know, maybe not that cheap, but, you know, somewhere affordable, you know, if you hunt. And you just take your side money and you start building, you know, structure on it. Learn some construction techniques so you can build something that resembles a 8 by 12 building or something. And you say, well, I can't live in that. And you're right, you're not supposed to live in it. You're supposed to just be able to move into it. You find yourself on a piece of dirt with a place to sleep, and you own it. You just got free. Now, you've got some little structure with a bed in it and whatever. You know, you look at these pictures of the tiny houses on the internet and they're just neat as a pin. You know people aren't living in that. You have to ask yourself, where do these people go to the bathroom? You know, where are they, you know, all the stuff, you know, where do you go to the bathroom, where do you shower, and they never really seem to go into that much. Anyway, I'd like to talk a bit about that as we move on. So you've managed to move out of your rented place, and you have yourself staying in a tiny house on a piece of land, and you actually own these things. You just saved a bunch of money because you're not paying rent anymore. You've found yourself in a very sustainable position. Your biggest problem here is to pay property taxes and to stay fed. All of a sudden life got pretty basic and pretty simple, and that's the idea behind owning this thing. And now you go, well, how do I move into that thing? Because you're not going to live in it. It ain't big enough. Well, there's composting toilets to take care of your septic needs. On a small parcel, you're not really going to want to do a traditional septic system. And there's very good composting toilets available. I mean, it's not like it's high tech or anything. And I don't think I would put that composted human waste on my vegetable garden. But you could have a very nice flower garden, you know, someplace, and you know, I don't know the science behind it, but to me, my head says I don't want that in my food, you know. I try not to have hang-ups, but you know, I got a few. That's one of them. First thing you'd probably notice is, well, I need someplace to put my stuff. So you add an awning to your little house. And now you got a little place to store things, you know. Your composting toilet could either be inside your little house, it could be a freestanding outhouse. You know, it wouldn't hurt a thing to do that way. It happened for, you know, a long time. But again, I wouldn't do a traditional outhouse either, because you're going to need to get your water off this property, and you don't want to put all that waste into the ground. I don't know how exactly that works. I don't know the details. It's kind of hard living in the age that we do, because we get lied to so much from every angle about protecting the environment, and science lies to us, and it's all about forcing this agenda, so it's hard to know what the truth actually is. So on a small parcel, I think it makes pretty common sense not to put waste into that soil, so composting toilet's a good way to go, because you're going to have to figure out how to drill a well, you know. And granted, you could haul water early in this thing and learn to really conserve. And you know, I talk about sustainability and conservation and all these things, but it's not in a tree-hugging hippie sort of way. I'm not that, but it's about learning to survive, learning about what you really need in life, not what you want to have. You know, that's the biggest stumbling block for a lot of people in this is, you know, they get hung up on zip codes and things, and they want to live in this neighborhood and all that kind of stuff, and I've never been hung up on that. But anyway, you can start adding on to your little house, and that's, you own it. You can start collecting materials, buying materials, and adding on what you need. This awning here, where you've stacked all your stuff that doesn't fit in the little house, you know, it can be tarped to get it through the first season, and then at some point, you know, it could be actually closed in and become an entry to your tiny house. A great example of this, I mean, there's nothing new about this. Have you heard of a shotgun shack? I think most people have heard of that, but do you know what one is? A shotgun shack is a long, narrow building that you could shoot a shotgun through the front door and it would go out the back. And I want to take just a quick minute to talk about the importance of that and how it relates to what I'm talking about here. You may have heard me mention a couple times now that I've owned a house that was actually made of shipping crates, and it was a shotgun shack. And the way that it came to be was somebody built a tiny house. And I learned this by working on the house and kind of going through it from an archaeological standpoint, you know, taking things apart to make repairs and things, and I realized that this is what had gone on. Initially, sometime in probably the 1930s, because this area has survived the Great Depression, which is one of the reasons I understand, you know, what's going on now. Somebody built a little house like this. It measured, I think it was about 12 feet wide and 14 feet long is what the original tiny house was. And they collected enough materials that they added on another piece. And so all of a sudden we had a place where they could sleep, and then they also had a kitchen, because you have to eat. You know, that's really what you need in a house, is a place to sleep and a place to eat, you know, to prepare the food to eat. Well, the next step, after they gathered their materials again, they added on a bedroom. And then when indoor plumbing became the thing, they added on a little alcove back here that became their bathroom. So they had a bedroom now, a bath, a kitchen, and this became a living room. You know, your social area. And all of this house was made out of collected materials. And that, to me, is the idea behind this whole tiny house thing. You don't get a tiny house to live in. You use it as a gateway to ownership. You reduce your liabilities to the outside world. You move into it, but you don't live in it. You live in the world that you create around it. Anyway, those are my thoughts on why tiny houses are important, how they actually work, and well, Let me know your thoughts, and if I've overlooked anything, if there's anything you'd like me to go further into, just let me know. You know I'm here for you. I'll see you soon. So just a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I came across this stack of T111 pieces, and I stacked them up here in the driest place I could find to keep them stashed, and I just picked through them because I was ready to use them. Free is good.